Yo Bar, what's up and what's happening, and welcome back to It's the Yo Bar series with me, Chris Harding. So a question that I have for you is, have you ever said to yourself, I'll do that tomorrow, I'll take care of my health tomorrow, I'll start a new nutrition plan tomorrow, or I'll start exercising tomorrow. But what if tomorrow never actually comes and you have to face the consequences of not addressing your problem? Well, what I want to do for you today is actually relay to you some experiences that I've had with clients. So the reason and the purpose for this video is not necessarily to freak you out or to kind of make you feel worried, but it is to try and address a certain situation. So I'm a type 2 diabetic nutrition coach, and I help people with their type 2 diabetes. Within that, basically what that means is that I help them control their diabetes better without having to increase their medication anymore. In some very rare cases, reverse the person's type 2 diabetes, but that takes a specific type of person to be able to achieve that. Quite often it's to do with their age, their physical activity, and their approach to life in general. So I have a website, and I'll link the website below, and on that website I've got a type 2 diabetes quiz that anybody can take who's interested in taking it. And I had a woman who contacted me, and she basically went through my quiz, and she said, this is the perfect thing for me. I need this help because I've got high cholesterol, which is basically too much LDL or lower density lipids inside her blood. And I've also got type 2 diabetes, which is, I've just had a blood test, an HbA1c test. And the blood test has come back that my my blood sugar is even higher than it was before. And I don't want to take any medication. I want to do it all through diet. So my initial response to her was, well, you should take the medication. You should follow your doctor's advice at all times, because the medication is there to control the diabetes and to prevent it or stop it from getting any worse. That is what the drugs are there for. However, yes, of course, I'm more than happy to work with you, and I'm more than happy to help you. So we had an overall 2 discussions. One was a 15-minute consultation, and the other was about a half an hour consultation, just to find out more about her as a client and what she was looking for. And then I sent her my fee via email, and she emailed me back and she said, could we have a quick phone call? So I said, yeah, of course. So we jumped on the phone. She said, Chris, this is a lot more expensive than I was expecting it to be. And I sort of thought to myself, well, if you wanted me to charge more, I could charge more, but I'm not charging less for my services because I've had such great results from previous clients. But her argument was that it's too expensive for me to pay for something like this. I'd rather do it on my own. As time went on with this individual, who I never actually ended up working with, her diabetes continued to get worse. Now, is that because it's from not working with me? No, it's because she hasn't taken any form of intervention. Her first initial thought was, I'm going to work with this coach and I'm going to try to prevent this from getting worse. So intervention. And I would have helped her with that. However, if you just think about a chunk of money, let's just say it's £1,000, okay? If you think about a chunk of money, but you've got a problem with your health, and you're not willing to invest something into it, then what are the consequences of that going forward? Well, basically the consequences for her were that she had to start taking insulin. So she was on metformin, and she was on high amounts of metformin. She also was then introduced to another drug, and then eventually her diabetes got so bad that she had to start injecting insulin. And the argument is, was it all really necessary? Just to pay that one fixed fee to work with me, or to do anything that was an intervention towards not allowing your type 2 diabetes to get worse, and also not allowing your cholesterol to get worse, is something that I feel that everyone has got that ability to do that. It doesn't have to be through working for a coach like myself, because it might be too expensive, but taking intervention, taking those early steps towards preventing the worst thing that could happen, I think is really important to know. The next story that I want to discuss with you about a client that I actually worked with, his name was called Nigel. And Nigel was sort of a mid-70s man, had worked in the city of London all his life, very professional man, a family man, and he loved his golf. He actually came to me personally, so I saw him one-to-one for nutrition advice and also just techniques on how to improve his golf swing through exercise. So I grew to know Nigel over about 18 months and we made some progress, but with Nigel, a little bit of background stories, being a London city trader, he had kind of got a bit of a bad relationship with alcohol. So Nigel's main problem was the fact that he had very high amounts of LDL cholesterol. So he had got very high cholesterol, and quite worryingly so, and he was concerned about it. He did start to address his alcohol intake and he started to wean it down a little bit. But then unfortunately for us as a coach and as a client, COVID-19 happened. When COVID-19 happened, because he was a man in his mid-70s and he was also on statins and he got high cholesterol and he'd also got a bit of high blood pressure, he didn't feel it was a wise idea to continue seeing me face-to-face, which I obviously completely understood. I lost contact with Nigel a little bit. He didn't come back to see me when things reopened here in the UK. So my gym and my physiotherapy centre, they reopened, but I didn't see him again. Anyway, a few years passed, and sometime last year at the back end of 2023, I actually saw Nigel, hadn't seen him for probably about 3 years. So I walked up to him and I tapped him on the shoulder and I said, "Nigel, how are you? So good to see you." And he turned round and he couldn't talk. You could see that there was some droppage on the left-hand side of his face. He couldn't use the left-hand side of his body. He was walking with a stick and he couldn't talk. And his wife was with him. I'd never met his wife before. And his wife said, "I'm sorry to say that Nigel's had a stroke." And he can hear you and he can understand what you're saying, but he can't respond. He can't really formulate words anymore. And it took me aback because I was like, this is a person that I knew, or I felt I knew quite well, especially from a coach and a client relationship. So again, it kind of struck me. And after I went away and sort of thought about it for a moment, I thought, if your health fails you, there's no coming back from it. I've worked with a client and he had type 2 diabetes and he managed to reverse his type 2 diabetes. But the reason why he reversed it is because he had a very strong stigmatism because his father died of type 2 diabetes. And before his father died of type 2 diabetes, they actually had to amputate his leg because his leg developed gangrene, which is a side effect, an extreme side effect of type 2 diabetes, but it is a side effect nonetheless. Obviously a very negative side effect. But when your health fails you, that's it. There's no going back. I always think to myself, you could be 45 or 50 years old, and let's say that you lost all your money and you went completely bankrupt and you had nothing, but you've got the experience of maybe 30 years worth of working and you can make your money back. Yes, it will be harder. Yes, it will be a slog. Yes, you'll have to work longer than the retiring age. So you'll probably have to work up to 70 or 75. But as long as you keep yourself healthy, as long as you keep yourself able to do things, there's no reason why you can't continue to work and make that money back that you lost when you were in your 40s or 50s. However, with health, it's a completely different plane. If you push your body too hard in a negative way, and you have too much of the extremes and you're starting to get warning signs such as type 2 diabetes, such as high cholesterol, high blood pressure, atherosclerosis and things of that nature, you are playing with fire and you are going to get burnt, because I've seen it happen and it's scary because there just is no coming back from that. It's a horrible thing to happen, but unfortunately Nigel has got to live with the fact that he can no longer do the things that he loved to do. So his golf he can no longer do. Driving up to London to see his sons. He had 3 sons who lived in London. He can no longer do that. And he can't communicate. He can't speak, which is just a God-given ability for us to be able to enjoy life. Most of enjoying life is actually being able to communicate with others. So it's very sad. And that also leads me on to my third and final thing. I've got a bit of a problem with people online who kind of got this idea that UPF, ultra-processed food, and sugar is not bad for you. People keep arguing with me saying, oh, sugar isn't bad for you and ultra-processed food isn't bad for you. Okay, let's take it to another extreme. So what can cause cancer are things called carcinogens or carcinogenics. So that could be obviously things like chemotherapy and radiotherapy. They're things that are used in microdoses to be able to kill cancer cells. But if you had too much of it, it is a carcinogenic and it would actually kill you. Something like asbestos. In the UK here, we don't have asbestos. It's probably been removed from most of the world's infrastructure now. However, back in the 60s and 70s, they were using asbestos, and asbestos is actually extremely carcinogenic and it's extremely poisonous. And if we inhale it into the lung, it's pretty much a guarantee that we're going to get a form of lung cancer somewhere down the line. Okay, so that's a carcinogenic, and sugar is not a carcinogenic. However, in my opinion, and this is just my opinion from working with clients for years and years, it is a toxic substance. If you have too much of it, which is very easy to do, if you have too much sugar in your diet, it will give you a non-alcoholic fatty liver, which is not good. It will give you a fatty pancreas, which is also really not good. It will give you hyperinsulinemia, which basically means that you're no longer responding to the hormone insulin as well as you once did. And it also means that your blood sugar is hyperglycemic, meaning there's too much sugar inside the blood. Just those 4 things alone, and that isn't all to do with type 2 diabetes, but just those 4 things alone, you're playing with fire again. And like Nigel had, he was pushing the boundary because he had this problem with drinking too much alcohol and having too much rich food in his life. Regardless of the fact he was a really lovely guy and he was a good person, because he played with fire for too long and he didn't intervene soon enough, and unfortunately the pandemic did play a role in that. Because of those things, he can no longer come back from his problem. He's now got to live with that problem for the rest of his life, and it must hinder him every single day. And this is what I'm saying about someone that the first lady that I spoke about. She's now got to live with the fact that she's going to have to start taking insulin and injecting it into her every single day. Whereas actually when she first initially contacted me, she was nowhere near that stage, but she didn't want to pay for the coaching. She didn't want to pay for the service. She felt it was too expensive. Okay, but you still need to intervene. It's still your responsibility. And that's what I want to wrap up this video on. It's your responsibility to look after your health. Nobody else's, not your doctor's, not mine, not whatever guru that you find online or any health journal or health magazine. It's still your responsibility. Yes, all the information is out there for you to intervene. All the information and support is out there for someone to intervene with you or for you to have that strong mindset and intervene for yourself. But it is still, at the end of the day, your responsibility. It is going to be you who suffer the consequences if you do not take some form of action. Anyway, I hope that video was helpful. If you want to write a comment in the comment section below, please do so. Please remember to like and subscribe to the channel. It massively helps me. And I'll catch you on the next one. Until next time, be fit, be healthy, and of course, be a boss bar.